She bought the weakest human in chains. Then he changed her. The slave market clung to the mountain road like a wound. Mud, sleet, iron cages, and the smell of blood freezing in the dark. She should never have been there. Even half dead, the Orc woman stood taller than every man around her, wrapped in a torn black cloak, one hand pressed to her side. Under the hood, the sharp curve of her small ivory tusks caught the lantern light whenever she breathed. She looked fierce enough to kill anyone who stared too long, but her steps were unsteady, and blood kept slipping through her fingers. In the last row of chained humans, one weak young man lifted his head, thin, bruised, barely standing, and still, when he saw the trader behind her draw a hidden knife, he rasped, "Behind you!" She turned, struck once, and bought him for a single coin. Minutes later, in the storm, she stumbled, and the human whispered, "That wound's poisoned." For the first time, the tusked orc woman looked afraid. The outline opens by widening the world around the human man, showing just how small and forgotten his life has become before fate throws him into the path of someone far above him. His name can be inserted later, but in this section he is introduced as a poor, ordinary, mountain-born human in his 20s, thin from hunger, quiet by habit, and worn down by a life that taught him early that weakness is expensive. He was not raised for greatness. He came from a cold settlement where survival depended on labor, patience, and silence. He once helped an old healer gather herbs, patch split skin, boil roots, and keep frightened people alive through long winters. None of those skills made him respected. They only made him useful. When debt collectors and raiders shattered the village's last good season, he was taken, traded, and eventually dragged into the chain market as one more body no one wanted. He expects the orc woman who buys him to treat him as freight. Instead, she drags him out of the market and through a brutal mountain storm, barely keeping herself upright. She is taller, broader, and visibly stronger than any human he has known, even in her weakened state. Beneath her torn cloak, he catches flashes of hardened leather armor, old clan metalwork, and the pale gleam of small ivory tusks when she grits her teeth through pain. She carries herself like someone accustomed to command, but now every step is a fight. Blood darkens one side of her body, and the human realizes quickly that the knife wound is not the true danger. Something else is inside her system. Poison, fever, exhaustion. She brings him not to soldiers or to a noble hall, but to a hidden hunting cabin tucked deep inside a pine gorge, half buried in snow and protected by isolation. The place is crude but sturdy, rough beams, a stone hearth, a narrow sleeping platform, stacked firewood, a broken shutter, and the stale smell of old smoke. It is clearly a place meant for emergencies, not comfort. That alone raises questions. A woman who looks like a war-born noble should not be hiding in a forgotten cabin with a half-dead human in chains. Their first interaction inside is tense, awkward, and edged with fear on both sides. She orders him to light the fire, boil water, and stay where she can see him. Her voice is low and dangerous, sharpened by pain. He obeys, but not with the panic she expects. He watches her the way a healer watches an injured wolf, carefully, respectfully, and with the full knowledge that one wrong move could cost him blood. When he tells her the poison is spreading faster than the blade wound, she nearly throws him against the wall for speaking out of turn. Yet when she tries to stand and nearly collapses, it is he who catches the water bucket before it spills, and he who quietly tells her she will die by dawn if the wound is not cleaned properly. That is the first true shift between them. Reluctantly, angrily, she cuts the chain from his wrists but leaves a length of iron fixed to one ankle, making sure he understands this is not trust. He begins tending the wound with simple mountain knowledge, boiled cloth, herbal mash, careful pressure, clean water, and patience. As he works, he notices details that should not belong to a mere wandering fighter. The metal clasp on her cloak is engraved with a high clan symbol, partly scratched. Away. Her speech is too refined for a common mercenary. The scars on her arms look ceremonial, not accidental. Even the shape of her tusk caps, removed now but marked at the base, suggests rank. He says nothing. She notices that too. The section ends with night settling hard around the cabin, wind scraping at the walls, and distant horn calls echoing through the mountains. The weak human lies near the hearth with one ankle still tethered, while the tusked orc woman sleeps in armor with one hand on her blade. Neither trusts the other, neither belongs in the other's world. And yet in the middle of snow, blood and silence, both already know one thing. If dawn comes, it will change everything. Morning comes grey and merciless, with stormlight pressing through the broken shutters and cold settling into every corner of the cabin. The outline begins by showing that neither of them can leave yet. The passes are blocked, the wind is savage, and the orc woman is still too weak from poison and blood loss to survive a hard ride. The human understands this immediately. She refuses to admit it. Even sitting upright costs her effort, and every time she tries to hide her pain, it only reveals how badly she has been taught to suffer in silence. Their first full day together is built from survival tasks, not trust. The human feeds the fire, melts snow, checks the wound, and searches the cabin for anything useful. Salt, old cloth, dried herbs, a cracked pot, a forgotten hunting knife. The iron tether still drags from his ankle, a constant reminder that, in her eyes, he is not free, only temporarily useful, yet he does not complain. He moves carefully, conserving strength, doing the kind of plain work that keeps fragile things alive. The contrast is strong and visual. She is larger, fiercer, naturally commanding. He is slight, bruised, and physically unimpressive. But in this room, her strength cannot boil water, clean infection, or make fever wait. His can, the orc woman, watches him constantly. Her suspicion takes many forms. She expects him to steal food, search her belongings, or run the moment the storm weakens. He does none of those things. He leaves her weapons where they are. He hands her the water first, even when his own lips are dry. When he finds a better blanket tucked inside a storage chest, he brings it to her without being asked. She studies him with narrowed eyes, unsettled by a human who does not beg, flatter, or cower the way she has been taught humans do. The outline then moves into the care routine that begins changing everything. He insists on cleaning the wound properly, even when she threatens him for touching her side. He tells her in a low, even voice that pride will not slow poison. That line irritates her, but it also surprises her. No one in her world speaks to her so plainly when she is vulnerable. He does not sound brave. He sounds practical. That difference matters. He is not trying to dominate her. He is trying to keep her alive. While tending her, he notices more signs that she is hiding something important. The stitching inside her cloak is too fine for a common traveler. A metal ring braided into her hair bears a clan engraving half covered with soot. Her tusks, small but elegant and carefully shaped, suggest status and ritual care, not hardship. Even feverish, she speaks like someone used to being obeyed by armed people. He begins to understand that whoever she is far more than a wounded fugitive. But he keeps that realization to himself, sensing that naming it too soon would be dangerous. A suspense beat comes that night. As the fire burns low, he hears something outside, boots pressing into snow, then silence, then the faint snort of a horse. He wakes her instantly. She rises on instinct, blade in hand. But her body betrays her weakness. Instead of panicking, the human acts fast in smaller ways. He kills the fire, covers the window cracks, wipes blood from the floorboards near the door, and pulls a fur over the spare supplies to make the cabin look abandoned. The riders pause, outside long enough to make both of them hold their breaths. Then the sounds fade back into the storm. That moment changes the air between them. She realizes he did not save her through force, but through calm thinking. He realizes she trusted his warning without question. Neither says it aloud. The first, true emotional softening comes later, after midnight, when her fever worsens. She slips into delirium and begins muttering in orc speech, voice rough and broken. He cannot understand most of the words, but he hears pain in them. He hears apology. He hears the name of someone lost. For the first time, the towering, tusked woman who frightened an entire market sounds less like a warrior and more like a grieving daughter or sister. He stays beside her through the night, cooling her skin, forcing water between her lips and counting her breaths so she does not choke in sleep. At dawn, she wakes to find him slumped against the bedside, still holding the sea cloth he used to bring down her fever. He had every chance to search her belongings, take her knife, or flee into the storm. He did none of it. That lands harder than kindness. It feels like character. The section ends with a small but intimate turning point. Later that morning, she tries to stand on her own and nearly falls. Instinctively, he catches her. For one tense second, her full weight presses into him, her strength, her heat, the reality of her body, the closeness of her breath, the faint flash of her tusks as she winces. She could throw him off easily. She does not. And when their eyes meet, something shifts, not romance yet, not even trust, but the first dangerous awareness that the distance between them is no longer as simple as captor and captive. The next section deepens the bond by slowing the world around them and letting closeness grow through routine, silence, and the gradual lowering of emotional defenses. The storm outside weakens, but not enough for safe travel, leaving them suspended in an uneasy in-between. The cabin no longer feels like a prison alone. It begins, against both their instincts, to feel like a shared shelter. That change is subtle, and the outline should emphasize that neither of them wants to admit it. The human settles into a rhythm of small tasks that make survival easier for them both. He rises first to rebuild the fire, checks the traps near the tree line, repairs a draft in the shutter, and stretches their food as far as he can. The orc woman, stronger now but not fully healed, begins helping despite herself. She splits wood one-handed when she thinks he's struggling. She sharpens the old knife without being asked. She starts moving around the cabin again, slower than her pride likes, but with growing control. Their interactions stop feeling purely transactional. They begin to feel lived in. This is where emotional intimacy starts taking root through ordinary moments. He notices she always reaches for her weapon before she reaches for water, and silently places the cup closer each morning. She notices he favors one side when walking because the old chain bruise has not fully healed, and later leaves a folded strip of softened leather near his bedroll so the iron won't rub skin raw if the tether must be used again. These gestures are never discussed. That is what gives them weight. The outline then moves into a stronger cultural exchange. With danger temporarily held at the edges, they begin speaking more openly at the fire. He tells her about the mountain village where he grew up, how snow used to pile against the doors so high that families dug tunnels between houses, how his people boiled pine bark in the lean months, how hunger made even kind people cruel by spring. He does not speak dramatically about suffering. He tells it like weather, which makes it sadder. She listens in silence, realizing that humans endure more than her people usually bother to see. In return, she reveals pieces of her own world. She explains the meaning of the scars on her arms, not punishment, but blood oath markings earned through loyalty to clan and kin. She tells him orc daughters of rank are raised to command before they are ever allowed softness, and that showing fear in the wrong hall can stain a name for years. She does not yet confess who she truly is, but she gives enough for him to understand that power has caged her in different ways. He begins seeing that her sharpness is not cruelty alone, it is training, armor of another kind. A gentle but meaningful turning point comes through food. He manages to catch a mountain hare and cooks it slowly with dried roots and herbs until the cabin smells warm for the first time. She mocks the size of the portion at first, calling it a child's meal. Then she tastes it and falls quiet. It is the first meal in the story that either of them actually experiences rather than merely survives. That silence becomes intimate. It marks the beginning of belonging, however temporary. The next emotional beat should soften her further. One evening he cuts his hand while mending a trapline. The wound is minor, but when she sees the blood, she reacts instantly, grabbing his wrist, sitting him down and binding the cut with surprising precision. Her touch is firm, almost irritated, as if offended by his carelessness. But in that scene, the power balance shifts again. The audience sees a large, tusked orc woman who once treated him like purchased cargo, now tending his hand with protective focus. He notices it too, neither comments on it, which lets the feeling breathe. Suspense then returns. Late that night, distant horn calls echo through the mountains again, closer than before. He moves to the window and spots torchlight flickering between the trees. This time it is not random patrol movement. It is a search pattern. The orc woman goes still in a way that tells him everything. She expected this, and she fears who might find her first. When he assumes the riders are her, people come to rescue her, she answers too sharply. Not all who wear clan colors come as allies. That line becomes the first real warning that her hidden truth is dangerous, not only to herself, but now to him as well. The emotional tension builds from there. Forced into quieter hiding, they spend a long stretch in near darkness together, listening to the wind and the distant movement outside. In that closeness, she lets one truth slip. The people searching for her may want her alive, but not free. He looks at her differently after that, not as captor, not as noble stranger, as someone trapped by her own name. The section ends on a charged, intimate image. Before dawn, he wakes and finds the cabin door open. She is standing outside alone on the ridge, cloak moving in the wind, snow catching in her dark hair, looking out over the mountain pass, as if choosing between duty and disappearance. He steps out behind her, says nothing, and drapes her heavier cloak properly over her shoulders because she is still not well enough for the cold. She allows it. Then, without turning, she asks him in a low voice, "If you knew what I was, would you still have helped me? At first, it is only sound. Horns in the lower pass, the crunch of many riders moving through frozen snow, the sharp cry of trained wolves somewhere beyond the pines. The human man knows immediately that this is no wandering patrol. It is a search force, organized and relentless. The orc woman knows even more. The stillness that comes over her is not relief. It is dread. She orders him to stay inside, but before he can argue, armed riders emerge through the trees and surround the cabin from every side. Some wear the colors of her people. Others wear no visible crest at all, which is somehow worse. The audience should feel the shift instantly. The fragile, private world they built in the snow is gone. Power, rank, and danger have arrived to claim her. She steps out of the cabin first. What follows is the full revelation of her identity. When the lead riders dismount and bow, not casually, but with formal ritual respect, the truth becomes impossible to hide. She's not merely a warrior, a fugitive, or the daughter of some distant house. She is a princess of one of the most feared mountain clans, the last living heir with a lawful claim strong enough to hold several war bands together. The scars on her arms, the refinement in her speech, the command in her bearing, the symbols hidden in her cloak, everything the human noticed now locks into place. The human hears her true title spoken aloud for the first time, and it hits him harder than he expects, because now the difference between them is no longer only physical or cultural. It is enormous, brutal, final. She is a woman whose name can move armies. He is a weak human who was sold in chains for almost nothing. His first reaction is not awe, it is hurt. He realizes she knew from the beginning that the truth would change everything and still chose silence. He thinks of the nights by the fire, the fever, the moments of trust, the small tenderness that had begun growing between them. Now all of it feels uncertain. Was he truly seen by her, or only used until she was strong enough to stand again? The emotional blow sharpens when one of the older clan officials, cold and polished, notices the human and asks in a tone of quiet contempt why the purchased human is still alive. That phrase lands like a knife. The official makes the danger plain. The princess's disappearance has already caused unrest among the clans. There are whispers of weakness, of treachery, of a poisoned succession. To stabilize power, certain elders are already pressing for her immediate return and a political marriage to a brutal allied war chief. And the human, frail, lowborn and witness to her weakness, is seen as a liability, someone who should disappear before stories begin to spread. For one terrible second, she says nothing, not because she agrees, but because she is calculating, cornered, and trying to choose the right move before the wrong word triggers bloodshed. But the human does not know that. To him, that silence feels like betrayal, and so he gives the section its emotional punchline. Quietly, with more pain than anger, he says, "You bought me in chains. I just did not know you meant to keep me there." That line changes her expression more than any threat around them. Before she can answer, the real external conflict explodes. Rival riders hidden among the rocks attack the search party, arrows cutting through the snowstorm. The cabin becomes a battlefield. The princess is forced into open combat while still recovering. And the human, though no warrior, uses the terrain and what he knows, lamp oil, timber beams, narrow footing, smoke, to help keep her people alive. But even as they survive the ambush, the emotional break remains. By the end of the section, she has regained her title in the eyes of others, but lost something far more fragile with him. He will ride with her to the stronghold because there is no safe road left, yet now a cold distance has opened between them, and for the first time since the storm began, being near her hurts more than being chained ever did. Inside the mountain, stronghold, where stone towers rise above the cliffs and every fire basin burns like a warning. The human man has never seen a place so vast, so disciplined, or so mercilessly built around power. Orc warriors fill the courtyards in iron and leather. Servants move in silence along the lower halls, and every eye that falls on him carries the same question: why has the princess brought a weak human into the heart of her people? He is given warm food, clean bandages, and a guarded chamber near the healer's wing, but nothing about it feels like comfort. It feels like being stored carefully. The princess is immediately swallowed by council meetings, clan rites, and public demands. Word spreads quickly that she survived poisoning, disappearance, and ambush, but survival alone does not secure peace. The elders want order, the rival faction wants control, and the proposed marriage alliance still hangs over her like a blade. When she finally comes to see him, it is late. She is still wearing formal clan armor, but there is exhaustion in the way she carries herself now, a weariness she would never allow anyone else to witness. This is where the emotional core of the section begins. For the first time since the ambush, they speak without soldiers or officials between them. She does not begin with apology, though it lives under every word. Instead, she tells him the truth plainly. If she had revealed her identity in the cabin, anyone who captured him could have used him to track, expose, or break her. Hiding the truth was the only way to keep him alive. But even as she says it, she knows the explanation does not erase the hurt. He listens, but his silence makes clear that protection chosen without trust still feels too much like control. Then comes her major offer. She tells him he can remain under her protection, openly and permanently, not as a servant passed from hand to hand, and not as a secret hidden away in winter shadows. She offers him a real place beside her, sworn, hearthkeeper, healer to her household, and a man no one in the citadel would be permitted to touch without challenging her directly. Food, land, safety, status, more than he has ever had. But beneath the official shape of the offer is something much more personal. She is asking him not to leave. She is asking him to choose her world, even if that world does not deserve him. Yet. He is deeply shaken by it, because part of him wants nothing more. But his struggle is not simple. He asks her the question that has been burning in him since the cabin. If he had not saved her life, would she still have seen him? Or is this only gratitude made grand, because she has power enough to wrap kindness in titles? He tells her that all his life he has been kept because he was useful. He does not know how to accept a place at her side without fearing that usefulness is all she truly wants from him. Before she can answer fully, the outside pressure crashes in. During a formal assembly in the Great Hall, the rival faction publicly drags his presence into the center of clan politics. He is mocked as the princess's weakness, her human pet, proof that poison has softened her judgment. A war chief allied to the marriage pact demands that the human be handed over as compensation for the insult to clan honor. The princess is given a choice in front of everyone: sacrifice him and preserve a path to political peace, or defend him and risk open fracture. She chooses him, not with a plea, but with power. She invokes an ancient blood right reserved for the ruling heir, refusing the alliance marriage on the grounds of proven treachery within the clan. Then, in front of warriors, elders and enemies alike, she names the human not as a burden, but as the man who kept her alive when her own blood failed her. She ties her honor publicly to his witness and forces the court to face a truth they despise. The weakest man in the room was stronger in loyalty than the nobles who tried to kill her. That choice has a cost. The hall erupts. Steel leaves sheaths. Loyalists clash with the rival faction in the ceremonial court and lower passageways. The human is nearly dragged into the chaos, but even here he matters not through force, but through memory and courage. He recognizes the scent of the poison resin from the roadside trader and links it to supplies hidden under the rival chief's seal. That detail becomes the final thread, exposing the plot. By the end of the section, blood has been spilled, the conspiracy has cracked open, and the princess has burned away any road back to a safer, emptier life. Wounded and shaken, the human finally understands what her choice cost her. And when she asks him, not as a princess, but as a woman, stripped, bare by truth, whether he will still walk beside her after all this, his answer is no longer silence. It is a step toward her. The resolution opens in the long shadow left after violence, where victory does not feel bright at first. The mountain stronghold still stands, its towers unbroken against the sky, but the air inside it has changed. Several elders are dead, some by treachery and some by loyalty. The rival faction has been exposed, yet that truth does not heal the damage overnight. Trust has been fractured at the heart of the clan, and the princess inherits not peace, but a wounded throne. That matters to the ending, because it keeps the story emotionally honest. She does not win a perfect future. She wins the right to build one at cost. The conspiracy is brought fully into the open. The poison used against her is traced back through trade seals, hidden payments, and sworn testimony from frightened servants, who finally speak once the rival chief falls. The roadside chain market where she bought the human is revealed to have been part of the same scheme, a place where inconvenient lives vanished quietly and questions were buried with snow and debt. In response, her first acts of authority are not theatrical, they are deliberate. She orders the market seized, its ledgers opened, and its captives freed or lawfully restored where possible. Debt trafficking within her territory is restricted, then publicly outlawed. Human workers in the lower households are given legal protection under her seal. None of this erases old prejudice, but it marks the beginning of change in a way the audience can feel. The human man changes too, though, not by becoming someone he was never meant to be. He does not turn into a warrior, a lord, or a symbol larger than himself. He remains quiet, practical, and more comfortable among healers, kitchens, winter stores, and fire-lit corridors than in ceremonial halls. But now he moves through the stronghold with a steadier back. He speaks when needed. He is no longer apologizing for surviving. The people around him do not all accept him, but he no longer shrinks to make their discomfort easier. Between him and the princess, the final emotional outcome settles into something earned and deeply felt. Their bond is no longer built only in secrecy, snow, and survival. It now survives the light. There are still hard looks, political strain, and cultural distance between their worlds, but neither turns away from that reality. Instead, they begin shaping a life through small rituals, the same way they first built trust in the cabin. She still returns late from council with tension held in her shoulders, and he still leaves a lamp burning for her. He still checks old scars and fresh bruises with careful hands. She still notices when he is tired before he says a word. Their love remains tender because it is practical. The symbolic callback comes during the spring thaw. In the courtyard, where chained debt slaves once stood for sale, bronze bells are hung from cedar beams by the princess's command. When the mountain wind moves through them, they make a low, soft music. It is her quiet acceptance of the old. Human superstition, he once told her, that storms pass gentler when they know they are welcomed. In the final scene, they stand together on a high stone balcony overlooking the same mountain road where everything began. Snow falls lightly, nothing like the storm that first bound them. She places the last broken link of his old chain into his hand, not as a reminder of ownership, but as proof that some things can end. He closes his fingers around it, then looks at her, not at her title, not at her rank, only at her. And when the bells begin to sing below them, he understands at last that what she bought that night was never a weak man. It was a future neither of them could have reached alone.